Ambrose was my firstborn. In the end, Ambrose was everything he was when he was a baby, but more. And in the last 15 years was my best friend and the closest thing I had to even a husband. And he's maintained that and been that all the way through his life. I just admired him. I envied my grandchildren actually, and I told my son this, that when I watched him say goodnight to them after work, after he'd finished work, and I said to him, I wished I had, if I ever wanted a dad, I wished I had a dad like you, because he was so, it was just wonderful to watch. I've never had the experience of a father or had a father for him, so he was everything I wanted. I would have loved to have had him. He became a master in what he'd done, and that was paint, spraying, car spraying. But the funny thing is, he was shocked to find that my biological father, he also was a paint sprayer, which both of us were. We couldn't believe it was like a coincidence, but he was good in his job. He was a homely person. He liked to go to work, make sure that they had what they needed in the home, the comforts, the weekends, films together. Since they've been to, you know, day trips or breaks that I never done with my own children, that I just admired him as a family. He was a family man, and that's all he lived for and all he done. Spent time with his family. My son's flatmate came to my home Saturday morning looking for my son, and I said, well, no, he's not here, obviously. And the friend said, oh, because he's, you know, we got into some beef and that in the pub, and he's driven off, and he knows that he's crashed his car, because he's passed, when he was looking for my son, that he's passed the wheel and where the crash happened. So I said, well, come on then, we've got to go and look for him. So he's taken me down there to where the wheel and the number plate and everything was. And straight away, none of it looked right. The way the wheel was leaning up against the railings, the number plate was just laying in the road, the debris, nothing just looked right or seemed right to me. And what's worse, the car wasn't there, and my son, we can't find my son. So we decided to go to the Fox pub. I said, right, we're going to have to go and see who he left, what time he left the pub, who he left with, if anybody left with him. And we've gone to the Fox pub, and I believe I was told it was the manager that I spoke to, that he can't show me the CCTV. And as much as I begged, you know, I really need to see whether my son left this pub, because it's only a few hours ago that he's gone missing and he was last seen here. I was refused refused to be shown the CCTV. So obviously I've come out, and I know that my son's last girlfriend he was seeing worked at the pub, and I asked the flatmate to take me to go and see this person, and she's taken me back to the pub. And a second time, I haven't gone in this time, that the ex-girlfriend's gone in, and after 10 minutes she came out crying, really bawling her eyes out. I thought she saw something that they're not showing me. But then she says, no, Tony, they won't let me see it. They won't show me. So from that moment, we've gone back to the marshes where we saw the wheel, where we were taken to. We've done nothing but search and search. I've called the police twice at this point. Before I even left the house, I called the police. They said I had to wait 24 hours. So, but obviously, me and the people that was with me was searching for Ambrose, waiting for that 24 hours. But whilst we were at the marshes, we were called back to the house by my son, saying that the police were waiting at my home because of the phone call that I made about my son. Come back to the home, and they were waiting here to get something with his DNA, or something that had his DNA on it, to see if they do find somebody to compare it with. Obviously, I don't know, that's the reason though. So I didn't have nothing at my house, and the two friends, one of the flatmate that came to me in the morning was with me, and I said, well, everything's at his place, so you're going to have to go with him and take him to get the whatever he's got. And they left it at that. And then they once the flatmate came back to me, we went back to the marshes, still searching, calling the police on everybody's phones. I mean, all our batteries run out. we couldn't believe that we were still there, still waiting for the police to turn up. In the end, about 3 o'clock, and I remember it was 3 o'clock because I couldn't believe I was still standing there, that we had to leave and go back the next day. I still hadn't seen the police. A missing persons report was officially made after the police that came to the house, it was around 9:30 for the toothbrush, but you know, when I was at the marshes, they police have come back to the, after that, gone back to the marshes, and then a missing persons report apparently was made at 12:28. I'm not sure the time, but it was just after midnight. I still can't understand, if that's the case, why didn't they come to the marshes? Because there's the missing person report now. Still, by what I've seen, and my son hasn't turned up yet, and he hasn't been heard or seen from since, and still they're not coming out. And this happened right up until Monday. I was ignored totally that whole weekend. Well, ignored. I wasn't. It's just nobody paid attention to me. I have to make something very clear here, that, and people keep on saying that I called, I was dealing with Barnet Police, and it's Barnet Police, but in Barnet Police is this and Barnet. But it was Colindale Police Station that first dealt with me, where I had to go. It wasn't Barnet, even though Colindale comes under Barnet Police, but it was Colindale Police Station itself in Graham Park, not in Barnet, where the Barnet Police Station is. I need to stress that all these issues, I think, is just hindering everything that we were trying to do with Ambrose. When we first viewed the CCTV, this is what we were shown. And this is in the very first meeting that should have really sealed me seeing Ambrose leave the pub, because that's all I kept on saying to the coroner. But I know Ambrose never left that pub. So they were told to show us that Ambrose had left the pub from the CCTV footage they've got. So 3 months later, just before the body was found, on the 16th of April, they came up, I believe that's the first meeting, this is what we were shown on CCTV. Ambrose had come out of the beer garden, out of the pub back doors of the beer garden, and he and Mal both like laughing but facing each other, and like they were in conversation, and it was like the other Mal just put his hands on my son's shoulders, as if say, it looked like, I understand you, bro, or blood, you know, I'll get you, and rah rah rah. And then the next thing, we saw somebody come flying out of the tent, and then somebody else, the back of Kip was, the back of the other, we were just seeing things that Ambrose wasn't involved in. He wasn't there. We never saw that. We couldn't Then the next thing, it went on to Fox Lane. And then we saw my son running all over Fox Lane. You see this person, this Mal, taking something from behind his back, running up towards the crowd, and it wasn't a punch. It was all the crowd jumped back at once, and he come flying down full force with his hand down on my son. And that's what we saw. But we didn't see that in the first. It's all we saw was just that same Mal person is run up towards the crowd. But that part was when earlier he calmed things down. When you don't see all that attacking, you see him running up, but he was there. He wasn't attacking Ambrose. He was calming things down. But when he, on the 7 months later one, we saw him run up, taking something from behind his back and lashing at him. There was 2 times we saw this Mal on Fox Lane. But what the original footage showed us, CCTV footage showed us, was this Mal running up Fox Lane, which didn't have somebody running next to him, which is another Mal that was next to him when he took something from behind his back. It was the time that he ran up on his own, and you see him go up to the crowd, and I thought he punched somebody. But in the one where he ran up and took something from behind his back, as they're both looking back to the men in question that have been made statements, running up, and you see him looking back, taking something from behind him, and then run up, and you saw the group all fly back simultaneously, literally together. And that's when this male, come down with something full force down on my son. As my son walked off, he was staggering. It was going onto the pavement, and it's like you could see he was hurt. Everybody just disappeared and went up. Then it goes out of shot. The camera, you don't see all that no more by the car, because it's gone round by where the function room in the car park, because you don't see that on that camera. I have seen a male run up Fox Lane. This is cutting from the hands on the shoulders in the back garden. You don't see from that moment onwards, which is grabbing the neck and that, you don't see that in the first video. It's all you see, the hands on the shoulders, then all of a sudden something's going on there, the taint and that. And then it goes out onto Fox Lane. And both, you hear us say, but why are they showing us this? That's got nothing to do with Ambrose, he's not even there. That was in the first one. But he was there, but they cut out from when this male had his hands on his shoulders and my son punched him, because he did. I goes, oh my God, he's punched him. And and that's when the beef had started. Then it grabbed hold of my son, and all that happened 7 months later. We didn't see all that in this first one, or second or third showing. We never saw none of that. Is why why the coroner said, you know, you've got to show them all these scenes, because we never see those attacks. Right. The two, then we saw, this is how they showed us it in the beginning. After the crowd disappeared, after this male ran up towards my son and the crowd, then they disappear. Then the next thing we see, something was going on in the back garden. This is how, in the car park, something was going on, but it was my son there and these other people that weren't even involved, like those that were involved in the beer garden. This is another group of people that are grabbing onto my son, and you could tell my son's trying to say, no, leave me alone, whatever he was saying. But the picture becomes so dark, it just looked like ghosts running around. That's not what we saw 7 months later. I can't understand why main people that were involved the next day at the marshes when they all got arrested, one of those main witnesses has never been questioned or brought forward, and it's a very big built guy, and up to now I can't understand why they have not pulled witnesses in. The only thing they showed us was the person coming from to the back of his car, coming out of the alleyway, out of the function room part alleyway, from a crowd. This is how they showed it, from a crowd, and went to the back of his car. This is from the beer garden with the hands on the shoulders. This is what it's cut to. And he's gone to the back of his car and whatever he's done at the car, and then he started running up the hill, holding his side towards, we didn't know it was the police until further on, but to the crowd, a crowd of people at the top, we didn't know it. And you could see my son running the shadow, but that was it. That's what we saw. Even then, I even wrote down on notes, I think I've just seen my son dying. Even then, but they didn't show us everything, so I weren't sure if that was Ambrose running up the hill. But I almost was positive it was. And Gina, we both knew. But it didn't make sense how he's come out from that alleyway that hasn't got into a fight. And they haven't shown us nothing, but he's come out of his shirt off. That is as far as attacking goes. There's nothing else they've shown us. What I noticed, what we noticed was what that security guard had filmed with the presence of the police. There was no sign of that in these footages they were showing us. We just saw one police officer with a short sleeve shirt run up the hill, and then you see him walk back down, and then you see my son and him, my son and the flatmate walking into the side doors of the pub. It just, none of it made sense. And as the person was seen running up the hill, running to the side as he's running up to Fox Lane, then we was told we believe this to be, we don't know, but we believe this to be Mr. Ball. And I couldn't agree with or see that it was him, because I couldn't understand how that happened, because we hadn't seen anything. So how, no fights, we never saw anything. We just saw him come out from the side of the alleyway and go to the back of his car. So it didn't make sense that would be my son. Why would he be running up the hill with no, you know, no top on. So when they asked us at that point, you know, but maybe you might know it's your son. Like I was, well, I don't know. I couldn't tell you if that's him, but I know it was him now because I see what led up to him being in that situation. The other thing that wasn't shown to us, they showed us somebody like running up and then getting into my son's car, then coming out. None of it made sense what they were showing us in the first 3 months. There was something else I was going to say. They also showed us this person that, oh no, in the way they showed it was the person went round. Oh, they showed us my son also and one of the friends that the two he went out with were standing. This is in the first lot of CCTV. My son and his flatmate, friend, standing by fruit machines for about, it seemed like, you know, it's 15, 20 minutes. And there was a lot of, the place was packed. But when we saw it 7 months later, we didn't see them fruit machines. We didn't see none of that day. Almost like they went in there one afternoon and they caught that on CCTV and they put that in. Because we never saw none of that 7 months later. The fruit machine and Ambrose and so standing by the fruit machine with the security guard who stood there watching the fruit machine while this person went across the road to get more money. That was what they showed us in the first 3 months, but we never saw that in the, it was like that was an afternoon in a pub, but the night, it was a Friday night because it was all clear, it was just dance floor, you know, people are, you know, getting, and kids running around the fruit machines. I find that very odd. There was kids actually standing there with Ambrose and the flatmate with the fruit machines. That's not a Friday night. Everything, it seemed like it come from a different day altogether. That's the impression I'm getting after the 3rd month, just before the body was found, coming into 4th month. They didn't take the CCTV footage from the function room because it wasn't in use that night, and that's why they never took it. So we know there wasn't a wedding party. So we know that's just thrown in because there wasn't a wedding party at all. But we were made to look at that because there was kids in the footage of seeing my son by the fruit machines. But on the Friday, you don't see that atmosphere. You don't see kids running around. You see big people. It's a Friday night. People going in, taking lines of whatever they were doing. It was a big people's thing. It wasn't a private. Plus, anyway, there wasn't a wedding there because the function room, they told us it wasn't in use. That's why that camera wasn't taken. And that's the one we needed to see because you would have seen everything that was going on by that alleyway where we saw that body or that person running out and going to the back of his car. There was something else I want to mention that they didn't have in the, what they'd done in the first footage showing us. They showed the two people that are actually, they were witnesses and made statements, and they actually said that these are just two unknown males that are having a little fight near up where my son's car was, or my son's car was a bit further up, but we know at the time, we know they would already made statements, so they weren't unknown to. But I know that they can easily say that they didn't want to divulge names, so they said two unknown males. But when you see that these two unknown males, how much they were involved with everything else, that it wasn't just two unknown males, they were known. And then they showed us somebody, and they said, right, now we're going to show this. The part that I needed to see is my son leaving the pub. They showed after it was an empty street, just that one couple that you see like run, you know, that it was packed then, but it was an empty street when they wanted to show us after everything had calmed down. My son's come out, it looked like from the black gates or a bit further up, like coming out the wall. That's how it looked like. And he's just this big dark man is in, because it's all too dark. You can't see the same. You can't see it as clear as we saw my son, and they showed us that in the first 3 months, or the first footage, that my son and the flatmate, both clear as day, getting out of their car, walking down Fox Lane, going round into the front main entrance, as clear as I am watching a video. You can see that so clear. But then this person coming out this wall, we couldn't even tell if it was a BMW. We couldn't even tell the number plate. Where the footage that them going in, it's as clear as day that that was my son, his car. But going out, when he was, this person was leaving, as I questioned, but what, you can't zoom in so we can tell it's the car. We couldn't even see who the person was. As we saw it was clearly Ambrose coming out. And the person has gone round to the car. We want it rewound, can show us again. And they showed us again, and I goes, that's not my son. And they've asked me, how do you know? And I goes, well, it's far too big for a start. And he's not walking with a limp. And they've had to rewind it to see what I'm talking about, that he's not walking with a limp. But they haven't seen Ambrose walk with a limp. They haven't shown that until 7 months later. When you see Ambrose actually walking properly, you can see the walk. That's what I'm saying. The person that was getting it, he didn't have the limp. But the street that they were showing me wasn't the same street that we saw earlier with the cars. And in fact, there wasn't even in the first lot of it, we never ever saw this the little white car in question. That wasn't even in it. That was later on when we saw, which is to do with the person who was being friends with him in the beer garden, putting his hands on him. That was deleted out. You never seen his car parked in between my sons and the flatmates. But on later on, when we were shown all of it, there was the car. So, but obviously they've tried to eliminate everything to do with the guy in the garden, the beer garden. This is how they played it. Was the last footage I saw of my son in the pub was him walking round, and he had the fear of God on his face. You could see the lights outside flashing, and you could see, I know you know your children, and he was petrified. And it was backed up by the bar staff who said, he said, look, can I hide? And she said, no, you can't. And then he said, please don't bank me up. She said, no, I can't. But he went behind the bar anyway. And that's what they're saying is the last time, and that is the last time they showed us of my son in the pub. And then he went round the back, and then they showed us his figure coming out of the gates, or it looked like coming out the wall, but it must have been the black gates there. That's how I'm visualising it. So it must have been a black. And he just came out, and he just walked casually round to the driver's seat onto the road, you know, fiddling about the door for a while, stood there for a bit, playing about it, didn't even look around anywhere, just kept his head in one place. And then when he got in the car, it's like he's sitting there and like he didn't even know how to start the car. That's how it came. But when we look back, as we've had to do with everything, rewind, and the more you go back, the more you see. And that's when I realised that that's not my son. It's definitely, he hasn't got a limp, on top of them not showing me whether it's his car or BMW. But I knew that wasn't Ambrose's walk. And then the car just drove off. Just all that alone, I know Ambrose never left that pub at 3 o'clock and everybody gone. Just that alone just didn't make sense.